It's a great honor to have you with us this evening, Your Majesty.
Thank you, Mrs. Bitterman.
I'd like to start with a question which you answer in the book very nicely, but I'm not sure that all that many of our audience members have had a chance to read your book yet. And that is, what caused you, after these many years, to sit down and to write this book?
Well, for many years, I wanted to write this book because I consider that it's my duty. And also for the memory of my husband, for my children, for my grandchildren, for so many of my compatriots who have not lived this period of Iran. And also the life of a woman which is out of ordinary. And I started to write 3 years ago. I must say that I had signed with the editor 11 years ago. He was very patient with me. But somehow life and the things I had to do didn't give me the time, so I started 3 years ago.
You know, you mentioned that you have had a life which is very unique. You have been a major player in world events over these last 45 years. But one of the most fetching parts of your book is your description of your growing up, a very happy, warm childhood. I wonder if you could speak about your growing up and the hopes and dreams that you had as a young girl.
Well, of course, that was actually the good part of the book, because all the happy parts, it takes you back to your country, to your childhood. And in those years, somehow, you know, we had a happy life with the family, with the friends, and also so close to the people in the neighborhood, and our neighbors and people in the streets, the vendor industries. And you know, although we didn't have all the material things that so many children have today, or maybe even then some children had, but we were happy with what we had. Even a pair of new shoes for Nowruz, a new dress for Nowruz. And in school we were happy because school was not a place we didn't want to go. We really liked the teachers, our friends. We were looking forward to it. And also, future was bright, and we hoped that we will grow up and study. And what we had in our mind in those days, I think many young Iranians, was to study, to do something, and to serve our country. And of course, it was a period of our time which I call the Pahlavi era. As a young girl, as women, we had the chance to go to school, to get educated, to do sports, and to be free.
And I did note that you were an excellent sportswoman. There's some wonderful photographs in the book, which I know our audience will so enjoy. A good part of your book deals with the many duties that you fulfilled as Empress. Your travels really to every corner of the country, promoting human services, advancing the arts, enhancing the status of women. It seemed as though your schedule was every bit as busy as that of your husband. And I'm wondering, and it's also prefigured here in questions that several of the audience members already have raised, what were the accomplishments that meant the most to you as Empress? What projects might you have started or activities that you undertook, whether with, you know, the community of lepers, the advancement of the status of women, the repositioning of the arts? There were so many things that you did, but what would be some of the things in which you took the greatest pride?
Yes, as you said, Mrs. Bitterman, when my husband asked me to marry him, the first thing he said was, as a queen, you will have duties towards your country and your compatriots. And of course, in those days, I couldn't imagine the scale. But it's really thanks to his support and his guidance, and also thanks to so many Iranian men and women who came to me, and they guided me. I learned from them. We found we learned about the problems and we found solution, and we had the possibility to really realize some dreams. To tell you which one, because there are so many fields, each one of them important to my heart, and it was not only me, there were so many other organizations apart from the government, so many other non-governmental organizations by other groups in Iran. The children, their education, what we had, the library for children, books for children, and of course you touched upon the lepers. This is something which was very dear to my heart, and thanks again to so many wonderful men and women who helped. And as I have written in my book, lepers in our societies, even cured, they cannot go back to their villages or to their cities as the WHO wants to reintegrate them in the society. But my husband had given the association land, and we built a village for them, and which was better than all the other villages around. So the reintegration became the other way around. And what was very important to my heart, as you said, is culture. Iran is a country of culture and history, and I had a lot of admiration for our culture and for the preservation of it, and for also for our people to know where they come from and what they have. And of course we had a great museum, one big museum, but there was the creation of several different museums for carpet, for ceramic and glass, pre-Islamic, Islamic, and two other museums. A beautiful Qajar museum that unfortunately the actual regime, they scattered the paintings and they transformed this beautiful museum into the place for the guardians of the revolution, as if there were no other building in town. And also the Modern Art Museum. And it was not only this kind of museum, but cultural centers, and also the preservation of our old culture, and at the same time promoting contemporary art and supporting contemporary artists.
There's a wonderful section in the book in which you talk about the festival at Shiraz and the bringing together of both traditional cultural forms and the more contemporary. It's very interesting.
I wanted to tell you, I have spoken about the two subjects, but one of the most important was the condition of women in Iran, their place in the society. Of course, there have been many women, Iranian women, much before me, who were trying as much as they could to find the right place for women in our society, but it was actually after first 1938 with my husband's father, Reza Shah, and then especially after the 1963, what we call the White Revolution, which gave to the woman really the right to vote and the right to get elected. And again, with the help of so many women, the changing of different laws for the status of women, as the family protection law, and so many laws who had been changed in favor of women, and they had equal right as men. And now, after what has happened in our country, unfortunately, the last 25 years for Iranian women who have been insulted, humiliated, and so many laws which have gone back to the Middle Ages, I think that never in those period of 20 years I felt that because I'm a woman, I cannot be able to do so many activities that I did.
One of the questions that's here is addressed to you as, you know, Your Majesty, as a mother, as a grandmother, now with an even brand new granddaughter who is named after you, Princess Farah. But really, what advice you would give to women in Iran today?
I am learning from them. They are so courageous. in spite of all the repression, all the brutality, they keep on fighting. And they are an example for all of us. And also all the women who had come out of Iran, they are forced into exile. They have really kept the family going, and I'm very proud of them. What to tell them is that we're not forgetting them, not only the women, but the young people and all the Iranians. We try to, whenever we can, make their voice to be listened to the world, that they want their deserved place in the society.
When we speak about the long history and the culture of your extraordinary country, one is reminded of the commemoration of the 2500th anniversary of the founding of the Persian Empire by Cyrus the Great. And this commemoration took place at Persepolis in 1971. As you well know, there are some who have criticized the entire event as extravagant or vain. But your view, it seemed to me that you looked at this more as an essential step in nation building. I wanted you to comment on it because that was such a hugely covered event by the international media.
Yes, I have explained in my book, I've written in my book about the celebration of the 25th century of Iranian history. We were celebrating our history, our past, our culture. And unfortunately, in the year 70s, there was a lot of attacks from different opposition group or from different people outside of Iran to vilify the regime, to vilify my husband. And there were details of the event which threw shade on the real thing, which was, for instance, I have written in the book, the food or the foreign people who came to help, because in Iran we couldn't have all Iranian. As I said in my book, we should have waited some more years and to do it completely Iranian. But people forgot about all the positive side of the celebration, because all the money spent was on things that stayed: roads, hotels, schools. And in all the world, there were committees created to make the Iranian culture known. There were books published, exhibition of art, and also concerts, and also we had all the leaders of the world coming to Iran.
The photographs are extraordinary,
yes,
with every
respect.
head of state in the world.
And when you can compare which is the leader who has gone to visit Iran in the last 25 years.
The 1960s and the early 1970s, as described in your book, were very important, very progressive, very heady times. There was a strong price for oil, progress evident on so many fronts, the development of infrastructure and social, economic, educational gains. When did you begin to first sense that that era of good feeling was passing?
Well, it was really, I mean, maybe 2 years before what happened. And it's not one day which passes in the last 25 years that we don't sit around and think of what happened, why did it happen, what could we have done, what went wrong. Because when you think back, Iran was a country with wealth, which it has aujourd'hui, I'm sorry, today. and also human wealth, which it has also today, but the right people are not in their right places. It was a country which was going forward, developing, progressing. it was a place where there was stability. We were allies of the West because it was in the interest of Iran. At the same time, we had good relation with the Eastern Bloc then and good relation with all our neighbors. And unfortunately, look what has happened to our country in that part of the world after the Islamic Revolution. And of course, we have to put ourselves in the context of that period because we had always the rivalry of the superpowers over Iran because Iran is rich, Iran is geostrategically is a very important point. And we had our big neighbor, the Soviet Union, which always had vision to reach the warm waters of the Persian Gulf. And of course, we had groups of opposition which were thinking that the ideal system is the communist system of Soviet Union or China. And also slowly, unfortunately, the movement of religious fundamentalism, because they were against the changes in the society, the social changes in the society, the land reform, which made many landowners unhappy, and also the emancipation of women and their education and their freedom. The religious fundamentalists were very unhappy. And my husband always wanted the country to develop, to progress, to go towards modernity and solve the problem of illiteracy and slowly open up for political participation. And in our countries, we cannot become overnight democracies. Other countries have decades behind them. And then, you know, we say a dictation which is not written has no fault. Of course, when you put one foot forward, there are problems which arises. And, but frankly, I don't think the problem were in a stage that needed such a horrible revolution. And of course, we were shortcoming. Of course, there were some mistakes, but the mistakes belong to both sides. To us, who didn't see the problems coming or didn't address them well or handle them well, and to those groups who were hoping for a more free society, more democratic, who went with a religious leader thinking that they will bring them paradise, and then they opened the door to hell. And also from outside of Iran, there were so many groups who gave the religious leader as an example of triumph of spirit over material, and that then if he goes back to Iran, it will be an example for the Middle East. And many of them, his supporters, were in the United States and in Europe, and giving an image that he's a religious man, that he will go and be in his religious city. He believes in women's rights, he believes in democracy. So all that, unfortunately, got together to create such a, I say, catastrophe with a mythological dimension. But with hindsight, I believe that if the political participation of people had started sooner, in the early 70s, maybe this would not have happened. Because frankly, I don't think that the problem were at such a level, and I believed in so much in what was done in Iran, and the base of a just society was set. We could have argued, we could have discussed. And also, you know, I must say that after the price of the oil rise in the early 70s, we had a big campaign against Iran from outside. I wanted to add this because this comes, of course, with the questions of dissatisfaction of people. You didn't raise it, I will say it myself. I know there was a lot of stories about the police, the Savak, the students, the pressure. That again was too much exaggeration generated by the opposition groups, which were very well organized. I always say that any police of any country is for the security and stability of that country. And unfortunately, some of them commit excesses which is not defendable and is regrettable. And I always say that if SAVAK was as strong as they said, these people who are ruling Iran today were all known by SAVAK.
During all of these times, and then after, when you and the Shah left Iran, you had close relations with many of the leaders of the Middle East, people like Anwar Sadat, King Hussein of Jordan, King Hassan of Morocco. I was wondering if you could just say a few comments about each of them and how you see the leadership in the Middle East today.
Well, of course, our relation with these three countries, you mentioned, very good relation, very friendly relation in any field, economic, political, cultural, and beside that, the friendship which existed between my husband and the late President Sadat or King Hussein or King Hassan. Beside the political relation, they were very close friends, and their vision of the Middle East and what they wanted for progress and development in that part of the world, and also especially peace. We had known them, especially the late King Hussein and King Hassan. We had been many times to their countries, beside official visits, also private visits. Their children came to see us. I went many times to Jordan to visit them. So we were very, very close. And well, history showed that with those leaders present in those days, the situation of Middle East was better than it is today. But I have a lot of hope in the young generation that has followed King Hussein for King Abdullah and King Mohammed of Morocco, and also, of course, Egypt with the actual president. I believe these countries are important, like so many other countries in the Middle East, and I hope with the help of the rest of the world, they would reach solution to have a stable, peaceful, and democratic Middle East.
There are two questioners who say, given your constructive influence, might it not have been possible when the Shah left Iran for you to have remained and been a focus of reorganization?
Well, if you put yourself in the context of that period, there was such a mass hysteria. Everybody was waiting, so many people, for change and hoping that the religious leader will come and, as I said, bring all they dreamt about. But as I have written in my book, I had asked my husband to stay behind, not to be active in anything, but to just to remain there as a symbol of what he was. But now when I think it wouldn't have served anything. People wanted to go their way anyway, unfortunately.
The times were emotional beyond belief, obviously not just in Iran, but in many different parts of the world with the coverage of the media. I was telling Her Majesty when we spoke on the telephone a couple of days ago that, ironically, at the same time that you were leaving Iran, I was director of the Voice of America in the Carter administration. And things were very difficult when the hostages were taken. The American people didn't know quite how to respond to American diplomats being taken hostage. And the coverage by the media was incredibly sensational, I think, in every country. You speak with such optimism about the future. It seems so very Persian, the way you talk about the light coming out of the darkness. And so many of the questions that have been raised by our wonderful audience are really questions, variations on the theme. I think everyone's just so eager to have your thoughts about this, since you obviously think about this as you counsel your son and work with the Iranian people all over the world. And I might just mention for our listening audience that this is the Commonwealth Club of California, and we are in conversation with Her Majesty the Shah Banu Farah Pahlavi, who has just written a memoir concerning her life with the Shah of Iran. But the thoughts that come to you that...
I must first say that it's my son who's counseling me, frankly. But because, as I have written in my book, and I say all the time, light will overcome the darkness. I don't want, personally in my life, the evil and all the negative things of life destroy me. Because life is a struggle for all of us. We can lose our land, we can lose our home, we can lose our position, our loved ones, but we shouldn't lose our dignity. We shouldn't lose hope, because otherwise we are losing to the evil. And for me, the Islamic Republic is evil. My optimism is not just because I hope so or I dream. Iran, as you know, is a country of culture, which has given to the world so much in philosophy, in science, in literature. It's a country of 1,001 poem of love. It has given so much example. What we call the first human rights charter started with Cyrus the Great. And then I believe in the Iranian people because they have gone through so many things in their history, and they always came out of it, and they kept their identity, they kept their language, they kept their beliefs. And Iranian people have tasted this regime. They do not want, they are beyond what the world wants to call moderates or reformers. And they have shown lately in their so-called election that the majority of Iranian people want change. They want freedom, they want democracy, and they want a separation of religion and government. And Iran is important for the rest of the world. It's not only for Iranians. And I hope that the world will support this voice of freedom of Iranian people, because it's to the benefit of the rest of the free world and also the Middle East.
I'm going to ask a couple of rather quick questions. The range of questions is incredible, and I'm going to give you the questions afterwards, because there's no way we can have Her Majesty answer the hundreds of questions that have been raised. How old were you when you were married?
When I met the Shah, then I was 20. When I got married, 21.
Do you have bodyguards?
Today I have a lot. Bodyguards are very important, but I think I have guardian angels too.
Somebody noted that your memoir was written in French and then translated into English, and this questioner wants to know why it wasn't written in Farsi.
The Farsi version was also, I worked on it. It's not just a translation.
Do you still enjoy tennis? And what did you think of the French Open?
Well, unfortunately, this year I couldn't watch, even on TV, the French Open, and the memoirs didn't leave me much time to play tennis, but it has helped me. Sport has helped me a lot during this difficult period to keep my mental and physical state healthy. But what I wanted to say about sport and tennis, that I played my best tennis almost at the age of 50, so never give up.
There are many questions related to the great sadness that you experienced in leaving Iran, the illness of your husband, the peregrinations from one country to another. And many of these questions relate to, as you reflect on your treatment by the international community, how do you find that the international community has treated you in these more recent years?
Excuse me, you mean in that period or now?
Sort of taking it from
Yes.
that period to now. Have people who were difficult become less difficult? Has there been a softening of?
Yes, of course, in those days, humanly was very difficult. We were away from our children. My husband was sick. And we were hearing so much about what was happening to the people who had served Iran, their assassination, and so many of our compatriots who's gone outside of Iran and suffered so much. Humanly, it was very difficult, but also at the same time, I could understand that countries' politics are for their national interest. But of course, now things have changed, and I can go in most of the countries. I have visited many countries. There is no problem.
For many of you...
Excuse me to interrupt, but even in those days, if some of the world leaders who had been our friends could not do politically anything for us, they always kept in touch and asked about our situation, and we were very touched. And beside that, so many simple Iranians or even foreigners who wrote to us and who gave us signs of affection, sympathy, and friendship, which I really thank them, because even one letter in those days meant a lot to us. So if we didn't have the presidential palaces or the royal palaces, we had many of the streets.
There's a question here about how you spend your leisure time. Several questions, including one, do you have leisure time?
Well,
but this
exactly.
is the assumption that you have
That's
some.
what I like better. Well, if I have a chance to play, to do some sports or get some vacation, or especially to be with my grandchildren, with my children, with some friends. And I must say that lately I haven't had much leisure time.
But then there really is, I'm not sure the person wants to identify him or herself, but thinking that you're such an extraordinary woman, it is probably time for you to consider marriage again. You spend some of your time in France, a country where you studied as a student, and...
Yes, to the previous question, I would say that once you're married to the husband I've known, there's no one who can replace it, and I'm married to my country still. So I spend some time in Paris. I'm a few months in Paris and a few months in America, and of course each year I go to Egypt.
Yes, for the annual commemoration.
Yes.
On your website, which is a wonderful website, there are so many lovely photographs of you and your family, as there are in the book, but things that go beyond the period after your husband's death. There are some wonderful photographs of you on an occasion with Mrs. Sadat and Mrs. Rabin, and you as three women contributing to peace. Do you find that you're involved in many international meetings or conferences pointing to the position of women or what women might do to contribute to greater peace throughout the world?
Well, not really in international conferences or places, but each time I have occasion and I can speak with the media or anywhere I am, of course, I speak about the subject. And that gathering was women who were next to the men who worked for peace.
There's currently a debate in France over whether or not the state can prohibit women from wearing headdress in public places. And there's quite a bit of discussion about that now. Have you been put into a position of being asked to?
Yes, I have been asked this question many times when I was in France and promoting the book. And of course, you know, at this point of my life, and having seen what has happened in my country and is happening in my country, when I see that kind of uniform headdress, which is not the traditional headdress of different Muslim countries, I frankly cannot have I have an emotional reaction. When I see that, it's not simply the headdress, but the laws which comes afterwards. Somebody asked me whether I am for free choice. I am, but until in my country there is no free choice, I'm not going to make any comment about those who wear these uniforms, which for me obviously reminds me of an image I don't want to see.
There are so many subjects covered in your book, as there have been so many different aspects of your life to date. A couple of questions similar to this one. What is the most difficult subject for you to consider or to discuss in public?
I guess there is not one question that I have not been asked. I hope that nobody will find one for me.
Questions here as to the location of the Peacock Throne.
The
People
Peacock
wondering about the
yes,
various...
the real Peacock Throne doesn't exist anymore. It was, nobody knows what happened to it, but I saw the replica in India, in New Delhi. What is in Iran, it's not the Peacock Throne, but it has been named Peacock Throne by the media for all these years.
Mm-hmm. And then there are several questions, again, variations on the theme. How difficult is it to go to transition from being a queen and empress to being
free at last? You know, I think I said once to my husband, and I'm an adaptable person, I'm always grateful to God for whatever positive one can have in life. And I take from them all the energies for the days that I feel down and depressed. But, you know, I've always remained myself. And although in the position as a queen, I was able to do so many things that life has changed, but I must say that I'm happy to have this freedom to go around, to go on a sidewalk, sit on a cafe, and I have a coffee, and then to be like everybody. And I consider everything in life as an experience of life. And some part of my life, which sometimes could have been hurting, is also an experience, and I look at it with some, what can I say, sense of humor. It's an experience, it's a new experience.
Wonderful. Adaptability is very important. A questioner who says, you are so very well received and very well respected within the Assyrian community, and is there anything special that is the reason for that, or?
Well, I guess I never thought of that in that way. They are part of our country, part of our people, and I have always admired them. I don't feel them separate from the rest of the Iranians, so I just send them my best wishes.
And they obviously send theirs to you.
Well, of course, when you say Assyrians, it's all the history,
of course,
which comes to your mind, and their participation in the history and culture of our country.
Would you say a few words about your children?
Well, my children, my son, who's a really great support to me, and thank God he has a sense of duty, at the same time a sense of humanity, which helps him during the difficult time and helps me. And politically, he's been active, and he's been fighting for these last 24 years with so many Iranians of different political opinion for freedom and democracy in Iran. And what he says, that if one day, hopefully, the Iranian people are free by a referendum to choose their system of government, whether a constitutional monarchy or any sort of democratic government, he's ready to serve his country. My eldest daughter has studied child psychology, and then for a while he worked also. She went into the School of Social Work. For the moment she's not working, but she's very attached to our country, and she just hopes that one day she could go back to her roots. My youngest son is writing a thesis about ancient Iranian history, and he's also a joy. I mean, they're all a joy in my life, and he has really a sense of being Iranian, and also a lot of sense of humor, which helps the whole family.
Yes, there are wonderful sections in the book about the little pranks and humorous moments brought about by your younger son, and we all know the very sad tragedy of your youngest daughter. Your granddaughters, if you'll just say a word about them. There are now 3.
Yes, there are 3 of them. The eldest is almost 12, then 11, and the little one who's a month and a half. And they're really a great joy in my life. And when I'm here, they can come and stay with me, and they have wonderful, interesting questions to ask me. And what they say, which makes me happy, they think that I am cool.
That's probably what every grandmother in the world would like to be, is to be considered very, very cool. Do you travel much around the United States? I know you live on the East Coast and your children do, but...
No, not unfortunately, because for always I wanted to visit some beautiful part of your country. But since I'm not staying too long in America and I'm so busy every day, I haven't had time to go anywhere beside New York and Washington, D.C.
Of course, there are some people in New York who would say that's all you have to do, right? They have the New Yorker map of the world. Do you think you might write another book? Are there other subjects that you would like to share with readers?
Another book to be published, I don't know, but maybe some of the things just for history, for the period I lived in Iran, and maybe also what happened after Exile, just to be there somewhere for history. Mm-hmm. I hope that I will have time.
And there's also a set of photographs on your website about going to wonderful exhibitions of Persian art at the Louvre and showing the great artifacts to your granddaughters, and them asking you, when will you take them so they can see these things, you know, on site with their own eyes?
I hope so. As we say, inshallah.
Inshallah. Several questions again, going to the year 2020. a bit in the future, not all that far away, in which people ask, do you think about what Iran might be like? We're talking about 15 years hence. Do you think that there are situations at play now toward greater discontent, which may lead to greater democratization? Do you have any sense of certain things that are taking place which you feel might lead Iran into a certain direction over these next 15 years?
Well, you know, I don't want to predict because one cannot know, but from what I hear from the Iranian inside, as I have said, that the majority of them are unhappy. They want change because when you see the state of the economy, a country which was going forward. I mean, to just give you an example, if the $1 was 70 riyals 25 years ago, today is 8,000 riyals. And also the per capita income, that was $2,500 25 years ago, now around 1,000 and maybe less. And also the situation of young people who want freedom, who want the chance to work, to own a house, to be free like all the people in the world. So many young people are addicted because they have no hope. And the condition of women, and so many young girls who unfortunately because of poverty they are forced to go into prostitution, and so many children beggar in the street, and also the situation, the respect of Iran in the family of nation, the environment, the corruption which exists, all that is making Iranian people very unhappy. But I hope again with the effort of all Iranians and also with the support of the world, the free world, to support this freedom-loving people of Iran, Iran will gain its freedom and especially keep its territorial integrity. But we just cannot hope and dream, but we have to, all of us have our part in trying to help in that direction.
One thing I cut out for you and have in an envelope that I'm going to give you at this evening's end is a recent article in the San Francisco Chronicle about the preparations for the celebration of the Persian New Year here in the Bay Area. So I want you to know that people really, the Iranian community throughout California is preparing in a very thoughtful and lovely way. When you and your husband first came to the United States when he was ill for medical treatment and then left and went back to Egypt, you decided then later to be here with your children. In these years, these 25 years that you've been here, do you feel comfortable in the United States? Can you put aside some of the hurt that you inevitably felt when your husband was so ill and there were political forces that might not have seemed as accepting of your sanctuary?
Yes, because it was a period, it was a politics of that period, because from the people and for the country, it's not the same. Same thing, and I see really many kindness when people know me, and the possibility this country offers, the beauty of it, and above all, really, we thank, I think, many of our compatriots, your country, to have given refuge and asylum to so many Iranians, and also other countries. And they have freedom and they have opportunity, and I wanted to say that the Iranian community is really a plus, I think, for America, because they are among the highest percentage in graduate degrees and highest among the most educated among the different groups. And I think economically they bring a lot to the United States, and they have been successful in so many different fields, whether science, business, or art and
film, as you
and
noted in one of
film.
your recent interviews.
And film and so many things. So, and my children are here, and I'm happy to be able to come and to visit.
There are so many questions. This will take you, I think, several months to review all of them. Some are actually written in Farsi, so I am not... I wish I could. I wish I could. I was very close to my colleagues in the Farsi service at the Voice of America and have great respect. So many of them were poets and writers and people of extraordinary background. Outside of the East Coast of the United States, is there some other part of the United States that if you just pretend that you had some leisure time and perhaps 2 weeks, where would you like to go? Would it be the Grand Canyon?
Yeah, exactly.
Would it be the great state of Maine? Would it be Texas? Would it be...
Grand Canyon.
Grand Canyon.
And maybe Wyoming and Oregon and New Mexico.
That's very interesting. Very interesting indeed. And do you find that when you look at, because you've been so involved with women's organizations and been such a model for women and young girls, how do you see the situation of women in this country?
In America? Mm-hmm. I think you're lucky. Everything is relative, and there are so many wonderful, hardworking American women in every field, but you have worked hard for it. You didn't take it for granted, and I wish you all a lot of success. And don't forget your Iranian sisters.
Exactly. Well, we shan't. This has been such a lovely experience, I think, for all of us, Your Majesty, to have this time with you, to raise questions, and to listen to your responses. Our sincere gratitude to Her Majesty, the Shahbanu Farah Pahlavi of Iran, author of the new memoir, An Enduring Love, My Life with the Shah, for speaking with us tonight. We also thank our audiences here in San Francisco and across the nation listening to the Commonwealth Club broadcast on radio. And now this meeting of the Commonwealth Club of California, celebrating a century of enlightened discussion, is adjourned.